To traverse Illinois in that turbulent century was to witness a land convulsing with transformation, geological, political, metaphysical. The prairie smelled of broken stems and turned earth, a sweetness edged with decay. Stand in tall grass in August and you heard nothing but wind, yet beneath that silence, the rustle of 10,000 hidden lives, the crack of roots breaking soil. Here was a territory that would not submit quietly to the plow, nor would its people bend easily to any single vision of what the republic ought to become. In the earliest years, Illinois was less a state than a rumor, a wilderness throne contested between sovereign powers who had never seen its black soil. The land remembered French trappers, then British governors, then the Republic's surveyors with their chains and theodolites, imposing geometry upon organic undulation. By 1818, statehood arrived like a hurried coronation. But what sovereignty meant here remained deeply uncertain. Slavery's shadow fell across the southern counties. Egypt, they called those river bottoms, where Kentucky's refugees planted their contradictions. The state constitution forbade slavery, yet permitted indentured servitude. In 1824, Governor Edward Coles, that Virginian aristocrat turned abolitionist, fought against a constitutional convention that would have made Illinois a slave state. The referendum failed narrowly, democracy's razor-thin verdict. The native peoples faced a sovereignty crisis of displacement. Black Hawk, the Sauk war chief, articulated it with devastating clarity. When white surveyors began parceling Saukenuk, his people's ancient village, was this not one authority dissolving another? His 1832 resistance ended at Bad Axe, where families were attacked as they tried to cross the Mississippi. The river carried the echoes of tragedy for days. Survivors fled the area, the landscape holding the memory of what had occurred. By mid-century, Illinois had become America in miniature, Yankee abolitionists in northern counties, Southern sympathizers in Egypt, immigrants pouring into Chicago bringing European revolutions in their trunks. Elijah Lovejoy's murder in Alton established the terms. He was an abolitionist editor. Pro-slavery mobs destroyed his printing press 3 times, and on the 4th attempt, they killed him. His death on free soil marked the cost of principle. Then came the Mormons. Joseph Smith built Nauvoo into a city-state with its own militia, courts, and laws. The Nauvoo Legion, 2,000 armed men answering to a prophet who declared himself candidate for president. Neighboring counties watched this kingdom with suspicion. When a mob stormed Carthage jail in 1844 and killed Smith, his people fled westward the following winter. Their temple burned behind them. You could smell the smoke for miles, wood and silk and consecrated oil turning to ash. The 1850s brought Senator Douglas's Kansas-Nebraska Act. Let each territory vote on slavery. Democracy as solution or poison? Lincoln saw it clearly. You cannot vote on whether humans can own humans. The debates of 1858 were constitutional philosophy argued before thousands in open fields. 7 encounters, 7 crowds, the Republic reasoning with itself before it tore apart. Chicago perfected a different unrest. The 1855 Lager Beer Riot. German immigrants clashed with nativist Mayor Boone over liquor licenses and Sunday closing laws. Hundreds marched on the courthouse. Tensions escalated. The cobblestones themselves became a symbol for those denied representation. When Civil War came, Illinois raised regiments with ferocious efficiency, yet thousands in southern counties harbored Confederate sympathizers. Secret societies plotted draft resistance and sabotage. In 1863, federal troops occupied southern Illinois to suppress insurrection. Lincoln, Illinois' native son, suspended habeas corpus, executive power overriding courts, authority silencing local assemblies. The war's end brought not peace, but new configurations of strife. Chicago rose from its 1871 ashes as a colossus, population exploding from 30,000 to over 1 million across the century. The stockyards carried a metallic sweetness into the air, clinging to clothes. The railroads screamed into Union Station day and night, their whistles a mechanical keening that never stopped. The Great Railroad Strike of 1877 turned the city into a battlefield. When wages were cut, workers walked off, streets filled. Federal troops occupied the rail yards. 20 lost their lives before the strike collapsed. The 1880s saw the 8-hour movement coalesce around anarchist and socialist circles. German, Czech, Polish immigrants who'd fled European tyranny only to find a different form of servitude. They organized in basement meeting halls thick with tobacco smoke and German beer. They published newspapers in a dozen languages, the presses running through the night. On May 1st, 1886, 40,000 marched through Chicago's streets. 3 days later at Haymarket Square, an explosive device was used against police dispersing a labor rally. 7 officers were killed and chaos erupted. Police responded forcefully to the crowd. In the hysteria that followed, 8 anarchist leaders were tried not for deploying the device. It was never confirmed who did, but for creating the climate that made such actions possible. 4 leaders were executed. Their last words: "The time will come when our silence will be more powerful than the voices you strangle today." The 1890s brought depression and the Pullman Strike. George Pullman built his model town south of Chicago, every aspect of workers' lives controlled, from rent to the books in the library. When he cut wages without reducing rents during the 1893 Depression, workers struck. Eugene Debs's union joined in sympathy. Rail traffic froze nationwide. President Cleveland sent federal troops despite the governor's protest. 13 lives were lost. Debs went to prison. That same year, the Columbian Exposition displayed electric wonders on the lakeshore. The White City gleamed at night, powered by Edison's bulbs. 6 miles south, strike smoke rose from Pullman's factories. You could stand at the exposition and see both, the future's promise and the present's conflict, visible in the same sky. To stand in Illinois at century's end was to stand upon layered histories. The prairie that once stretched unbroken now bore the gridwork of property. The tall grass that hid bison now grew corn in orderly rows. Chicago's skyscrapers announced humanity's conquest of horizontal space by taking the vertical. The home insurance building, 10 stories of steel and ambition. Yet the fundamental questions remained unresolved. Who truly governed? The people in their varied assemblies? Capital, with its invisible throne? The state, swinging between authority and paralysis? Illinois in the 1800s answered, all and none, eternally contested, perpetually at war. The land itself seemed to hold the tension in its dark soil, waiting for some future century to decide what sovereignty actually means, if it means anything at all when built on displacement, sustained by conflict, and contested at every turn by those who refuse to be governed except by their own consent. If this tour changed the way you see American history, subscribe. These stories aren't about dates. They're about power, conflict, and the arguments we're still living with,